Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. Kevin Rogers with you as we look at the college football action from week 0. Not a lot of exciting action, to say the least, and a lot of baseball to look at for Monday. So let's get right to it. And let's begin with college football and the embarrassment that we saw, depending on which way you look at it, between what the Nebraska Cornhuskers against Illinois. And Illinois ends up beating Nebraska 30-22, a game in which the Huskers had just, these college guys, I'm going to say college, I'm going to single them out as opposed to the NFL. These college players, for some reason, like to field kicks inside their own 10-yard line, field punts inside their own 10-yard line. And there's no reason for it. All you have to do is just let it go. Let the ball bounce. If it goes in the end zone, it's a touchback. If it bounces out at the 1, it bounces out the 1. But there's no way you're going to make any kind of play that's going to result in anything positive. So Illinois begins the season with a safety to go up 2-0. Nebraska goes down and scores. Then they get a field goal to make it 9-2. So you think, okay, the 2 points really didn't make that big of a difference. Nebraska's going to roll. But then Illinois went down, scored with 3 minutes to go before the half. And then Adrian Martinez, the quarterback for Nebraska, has been there like 100 years. He fumbles. Illinois takes it back to the house. They're up 16-9. And then they just go on cruise control. Nebraska scored some late touchdowns. And for Scott Frost, it's just a terrible, terrible stretch that he has had as the head coach of the Nebraska Cornhuskers, going back to his alma mater. And Nebraska actually outgained Illinois in the game, but Illinois cashed a 6.5-point underdogs. And for the Huskers, there's not a lot of excuses. There's actually no excuses for what they did on Saturday, losing that game to Illinois in Brett Bielema's debut as the head coach. That game barely stayed under the total of 52.5, and Nebraska now 0-1 out of the gate, and they have a couple easy games coming up, and then they play Oklahoma, so they're going to catch a lot of points in that game, but still a very subpar performance for Nebraska. And give Illinois credit, they played well, and now they are up to 1-0 on the season. Out of the other games on Saturday, UCLA with a resounding victory over Hawaii, 44-10. The game stayed under the total. In fact, all 4 FBS games, FBS versus FBS opponents, stayed under the total on Saturday. And for UCLA, they went into this game 0-3 under Chip Kelly, straight up and against the spread in season openers. And Hawaii actually had been on a nice run in season openers as well. But UCLA, they jump out to a 24-3 lead after the first quarter. They're up 31-3 at the half. But somehow, because there was no scoring in the fourth quarter, these teams stayed under the total of 67. UCLA rushed for 244 yards in the game. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the quarterback for UCLA, threw for only 130 yards. But the Bruins, though, they run the ball well, and that's a much-needed win over Hawaii since UCLA faces LSU this week. And LSU's got to deal with, again, Hurricane Ida that pushed them out of Louisiana. And they've been practicing in Houston, and then they got to go out to L.A. So UCLA can catch a break here playing LSU under these circumstances coming up on Saturday at the Rose Bowl. They're an underdog at home. So at least UCLA didn't have a slip up there against Hawaii, which they really couldn't afford. And especially in Chip Kelly's 4th season now, got up to a tough start the last few seasons. Now they're 1-0. UTEP beats New Mexico State 30-3. And UTEP, who is a bottom feeder in Conference USA, when they're beating you by 4 touchdowns, you're an FBS school, probably time to pack it up. And UTEP ends up winning 30-3. They win easily. So they're laying 9.5 on the road against their geographic rivals in New Mexico State. And for UTEP, I don't know how many more times they'll be favored this year, especially in conference play when they reach that. But New Mexico State, just an embarrassing effort. And, we saw that with New Mexico State. We saw it with UConn. And Fresno State ends up whipping UConn 45-0. And the Bulldogs, who play Oregon this week, that was a good tune-up for them. UConn, who was off last year, they took the year off. Again, if they played, I don't know how much it would have benefited them because they're just not very good. But when you look at the 4 FBS games, there were 3 easy favorite winners. Illinois was a bit of a public dog, and all 4 games finished under the total. Now, we got a bunch of games coming up this week, and we'll talk more about that later on during the week. But that's what we had from college football this past weekend. So now let's transition to Major League Baseball. And tonight we'll begin with the Cardinals and the Reds. And this matchup is very interesting because both these teams coming off 1-run losses on the road as heavy favorites on Sunday. The Cardinals had a 3-1 lead over the Pirates. Pittsburgh hit a 3-run walk-off homer in the ninth to beat St. Louis 4-3. So if you had the run line, like I did with the Cardinals, that's a tough way to lose it. And the Reds lost 2 of 3 to the Marlins. The Reds really can't afford to be losing these games with San Diego. In spite of San Diego struggling, you still don't want to keep the door open for them. The Marlins, in case you missed it, had 5 runs in the first inning in Saturday night's win. They had a 2-run homer yesterday in the first, didn't score again. So the Reds actually did a pretty good job of limiting the Marlins outside of 2 not-so-great innings throughout the whole weekend. But yet the Marlins still ended up taking 2 of 3. And the Reds got a hit out of the gate and didn't get another hit until the 9th inning. So Cincinnati, they now return home to face St. Louis, and Luis Castillo takes the mound tonight. He's nearly a $2 favorite. And for Castillo, he's got an ERA below 2 in his last 6 home starts. And the Reds have won their last 2 starts, I should say, against the Cardinals. Even though he got rocked by St. Louis earlier this season, John Lester goes for St. Louis. And for Lester, he actually has not been bad in his last few starts. He was rocked a little bit in his first 2 starts coming over from the Nationals. But the Cardinals, we have not seen them in this kind of underdog price in a while. So St. Louis could be worth a look here. Cincinnati, with their offensive struggles last few games, now they're back home, but also their last 4 home series, they played the Marlins, the Cubs, the Pirates, and the Twins, all last place teams. And St. Louis is still in the wild card hunt. So a bit of an upgrade as far as opponent for the Reds tonight. The Phillies face the Nationals in D.C. And Philadelphia, they got a much-needed series win over Arizona this weekend. They beat Madison Bumgarner yesterday, who they lost to out in the desert a few weeks ago. And now Philadelphia goes to Washington. And Zach Wheeler takes the mound for Philadelphia. And Wheeler, who just a few weeks ago, he actually was one of the favorites to win the Cy Young Award in the National League. And unfortunately, he's gone backwards. His last 3 starts, he's allowed 15 runs, 15 earned runs, and 17 runs total. Zach Wheeler had a very strange line his last time out against Tampa Bay. Lost 7-4, went 8 innings, allowed 10 hits and 7 runs, but struck out 10 and didn't walk a batter. So you don't see that very often. But Wheeler has definitely gone backwards pretty much since July because he had really good numbers. And his ERA is still at 2.90. So it's not like he's totally fallen off, but he was pitching very well. And Josiah Gray, who goes for the Nationals tonight, who came over in the Max Scherzer trade, he's actually been pretty decent. 6 innings in each of his last 3 starts. He's actually allowed 2 earned runs or less in 5 of his past 6 starts, although the Nationals just 2-3 in his 5 starts since coming over to Washington. And one of those defeats came to the Phillies 7-5 back on August 2nd. He allowed 1 earned run in 5 innings. That was the game, if you remember, that was opposite Aaron Nola, that the Nationals led 3-2 late, and Philadelphia scored 5 in the ninth to, or actually that was against Ranger Suarez, excuse me. No, that was the wrong game. That was the series that the Phillies swept the Nationals. It felt like every game Washington led late, and then Philadelphia came back and won. But that's right. And it was later in the series. Aaron Nola pitched, and the Phillies built like a 2-0 lead. Washington came back. They led, and then Philadelphia blew it open in the ninth inning. I think that was the opener, this one that Josiah Gray pitched. But he pitched well against them. So that line is dropped, and Philadelphia laying 145 against Washington this evening up at Nationals Park. The Padres and the Diamondbacks, they meet up again. When I say again, they just met earlier in the month in Phoenix. And in that series, Arizona took 3 of 4 from San Diego. And if you remember one of those games, Tyler Gilbert, for the Diamondbacks, his first ever start, no-hit the Padres. 7-0 victory back on August 14th, plus $2. 5 strikeouts, 3 walks, no hits, no runs. And now the Diamondbacks return home after a long road trip, which saw them go 3-7 at Colorado, Pittsburgh, and Philadelphia. So now they're back at home. No rest. Welcome back. And in actuality, when you look at it, they had no rest. I mean, they went from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia, which is not a long trip. But they had no rest from Colorado to Pittsburgh. So this Diamondbacks team is a little tired. And San Diego had a day off yesterday because it was a 2-game set against the Angels. And look, they got blown out by the Angels on Saturday, 10-2. They won the Friday game 5-0. San Diego's been a complete disaster recently. They may miss the playoffs. But this is a good scheduling spot for the Padres, who were in Anaheim, so they weren't very far from Phoenix. And they catch an Arizona team likely very tired off of that long road trip. And they've already seen Gilbert. They got no hit by Gilbert. They didn't forget that. Chris Paddock goes for San Diego tonight. And for Paddock, he's making his first start since late July when he beat Oakland 6 innings, 3 earned runs. And Paddock a heavy favorite here tonight, which is not really shocking. The top game in the National League, the Giants back at home after they lost to Atlanta yesterday. So now they get tested again, and they will face Corbin Burnes, who he's right in the Cy Young discussion. And look, it was Jacob deGrom for a bit. He's been hurt. Zach Wheeler. It's down to Burnes and Walker Buehler of the Dodgers. Those are going to be the guys that are going to one of those two will win the Cy Young most likely. But for Corbin Burnes, who's had a breakout season, Milwaukee is 7-0 his last 7 starts. They just beat Cincinnati his last time out. The guy will go at least 6 innings, no questions asked. ERA of 2.30. Last time he faced San Francisco back on August 6th. 2-1 win, 7 innings, 4 hits, and earned run. So he had success the last time he faced the Giants. Johnny Cueto on the other side for San Francisco. He allowed 4 runs in 5 1/3 innings against Milwaukee back on August 8th. That was the Sunday game. And Cueto got off the hook because Milwaukee was up 4-2 in that game, and the Giants came back and won 5-4. So Cueto got a no decision. Cueto actually 4 straight unders, 5 of the last 6. So these games have been pretty close, or pretty low scoring and close games, because the last 2 were decided by a run against the Mets and Brewers on this recent road trip. But San Francisco, though, back at home, and a big series because the Brewers are fine right now. They're in control of the National League Central. The Dodgers, who we'll get to in a second, they had kind of a rough weekend with the Rockies, which you wouldn't expect. Colorado, the worst road team in baseball, and the Dodgers had some problems with them. But LA, though, still 2.5 back of San Francisco. So the Giants can't really let up here after they played Atlanta this past weekend, and now they face the Brewers at home, which will not be easy. The Brewers avoided a sweep against Minnesota yesterday, and they got a big win that they needed. So, okay, let's transition into Braves and Dodgers. And the Braves, who right now in control of the National League East, they're on a great run. They head to LA for an NLCS rematch. And remember, they didn't go to LA for the National League Championship Series last year. It was in Arlington, Texas, due to the pandemic. So first time in LA in a few seasons for the Braves. They took 2 of 3 from San Francisco. And look, Atlanta went through a stretch where they took care of business. They played Baltimore. They swept them. They swept Miami. They swept Washington all on the road. But then they lost 2 at home to the Yankees, and they bounced back, winning 2 of 3 against San Francisco. Now they get LA on the road. Then they go to Colorado, which won't be easy because the Rockies have been fantastic at Coors Field this year. And the Dodgers lost 2 of 3 to Colorado after they swept San Diego. So a bit of a letdown for them. But here is what we're going to keep an eye on tonight for the Braves, and it's Drew Smyly. He has been excellent for Atlanta. ERA not great, 4.54, but he's got 9 wins on the season. And going back, this is going back a while to June, in fact, for Drew Smyly. The Braves, going back to late June, I mean, this is actually, it's more of like, you know what? I'm going to go back to the beginning of June with Drew Smyly. 12-1, the Braves are his last 13 starts. That is amazing. And in that stretch, you know how many road wins there's been on Drew Smyly's behalf? 9. 9 of those wins have come on the road for Drew Smyly. So he faces the Dodgers tonight, who he did not face them when they played each other in Atlanta earlier this season. And that series back in June, Atlanta grabbed 2 of 3. The one win came with Julio Urias on the mound, and he pitches tonight for LA. He's a heavy favorite, 14-3 record, 3.17 ERA. And it's a shame because he's had an excellent season. He won't be in the Cy Young discussion. But for Urias, he has not given up a run his last 2 starts, both wins against the Mets and the Padres. So he's been very good. And that look, you got 2 really good series in the National League tonight. And you can almost argue it's not out of the realm of possibility that Brewers, Giants, Braves, Dodgers we could see again coming up in the playoffs, that these 2 series can be repeats coming up in October. So that is very possible. Now let's go to the American League, and a makeup game today in Detroit between the Twins and the Tigers. Minnesota's favored in this one, which is a little baffling to me. And I know they took 2 of 3 from Milwaukee. They go with Bailey Ober today, 6'9" Bailey Ober. And 2 of his last 3 starts, he has not allowed a run. And he did that against the White Sox and Red Sox. Pretty impressive. Also, Minnesota lost to Cleveland in that stretch when he was laying 170. Now, Minnesota's last 4 starts with Ober have all come in the underdog role, or last 4 wins, I should say, have come in the underdog role. His last 2 starts in which Minnesota lost, he was favored. And now he's favored today against the Tigers. And Detroit, they have a good number here. 9 of their last 10 games, they've allowed 3 runs or less. So the pitching's been very good. The problem is against Toronto, they scored a grand total of 5 runs this weekend. So they lost 2 of 3 to the Blue Jays. They're on an 8-0 underrun, the Detroit Tigers. Casey Mize takes the mound, and Casey Mize, 7-6 record, 3.55 ERA. The Tigers have alternated wins and losses in his last 6 since the All-Star break, and they're coming off a win at St. Louis his last time out. So you would think it would go backwards today. But Detroit has taken 5 of the past 6 meetings with Minnesota. They swept them right after the All-Star break at Comerica Park. I just don't trust this Minnesota team on the road. Simple as that. I guess nobody trusts the Baltimore Orioles because they are very happy today. They are not playing the Tampa Bay Rays, who they beat 1 time in 19 tries. So Tampa Bay, who plays Boston, we'll talk about that in a minute. But Tampa Bay, they beat Baltimore 18 times this year. So the Orioles, 40-89, you take away those 18 losses, hey, they look a lot better, don't they? But the Orioles, though, they hit the road to face Toronto, which will not be easy, even though Toronto's offense has been a little shaky of late. But the Orioles go with Chris Ellis tonight on the mound, and Ellis was actually the starting pitcher when the Orioles snapped their 19-game losing streak opposite Shohei Ohtani in a 10-6 win. But for Ellis, he hasn't gone more than 4 innings in any of his 2 starts. And it's Robbie Ray on the other side for Toronto, who continues to have a very solid season, 2.72 ERAs, nearing 200 strikeouts. And Ray is actually on a 6-start under streak. During this run, he has allowed a grand total of 7 runs, 7 earned runs. That's total runs anyway. 25 strikeouts his last 2 starts for Robbie Ray. And he is a very heavy favorite tonight for the Blue Jays. In the American League East, elsewhere in the American League East, Red Sox and Rays, very big matchup. And these teams who have plenty of history, Tampa Bay beat Boston 3 times at Tropicana Field, and the Rays took 2 of 3 at Fenway when they met earlier this month. The only win for Boston came in that crazy 20-8 win. It was 20-1. Tampa Bay scored 7 runs in the 9th inning of that game. But look, the Rays have owned the Red Sox, and when it's all said and done, the reason the Rays are in first, one of the reasons, they've taken care of business against Boston. Since losing to them earlier this season, back in April, since losing that series at Fenway, Tampa Bay's had their way with Boston. And that's why they have the record they have, or at least the advantage they have. So on the mound for the Red Sox is Nick Pivetta. And Boston, who had a chance to sweep Cleveland, kind of a funky series this weekend against the Indians, because in Friday's opener, Cleveland led 3-1. Boston came back, scored 3 in the 8th, and won 4-3. Then on Saturday, the Red Sox were up 2-0 out of the gate. Cleveland tied it at 2. It was stuck at 2-2 until extra innings. J.D. Martinez did a 3-run homer in the top of the 10th. Cleveland got one in the bottom of the 10th, and they had to escape a bases-loaded jam. And the Red Sox won 5-3. Then yesterday, Boston had a 4-0 lead. Cleveland came back, and they eventually won 7-5. So the Red Sox couldn't get the sweep there. And Nick Pivetta starts for the Red Sox tonight. Lost as a favorite his last time out against Minnesota. In fact, he's given up 8 earned runs in his last 2 starts. So he has not been good. Gave up 3 earned runs against Tampa Bay in a 3-2 loss back on August 1st in less than 5 innings of work. Luis Patino goes for Tampa Bay. And for Patino, he's been a decent option, at least for Kevin Cash, just another pitcher in there to get some, to eat up some innings. He beat the White Sox last time, laying 140, 6 innings, 2 earned runs. And he did beat, or picked up a no decision, but the Rays beat the Red Sox 8-4. Last time he faced them August 10th at Fenway, gave up 2 home runs in 6 innings of work, but Patino now favored against the Red Sox. And Tampa Bay returns home after taking all 5 games on the road trip at Philadelphia and Baltimore, and they've won 7 in a row and 9 of 10. The Yankees and the Angels tonight from Anaheim, and Corey Kluber expected back on the mound for New York, and the Yankees, who went on that 13-game winning streak, and things kind of fell off the last 2 days as the Athletics won the final 2 of that series, both in low-scoring affairs. And look, the Yankees weren't going to win every game the rest of the way, no matter what Yankee fans think. But New York limited to just 3 runs in the final 2 games of that series at Oakland, lost 3-2 Saturday, lost 3-1 on Sunday. And they take on the Angels, who were off yesterday, beat up San Diego on Saturday night. But the Angels have been great against under 500 teams and not so good against teams with winning records this year. And the Yankees played the Angels a few weeks ago in a makeup game. Yankees won 2-1 earlier in the year. Angels actually took 2 of 3 in that series in the Bronx. So the teams have split 4 games so far. First time the Yankees out in Anaheim since April of 2019. So it's been a while. And Corey Kluber, speaking of been a while, he is making his first start since May. He had that no-hitter against Texas back in late May, and then his next start against Toronto, he lost 6-2. So Kluber back for the Yankees. The Angels don't have a starter named yet for tonight. And then we got 2 to go. The late game of the American League, Astros and the Mariners. They met up last weekend in Houston. The Astros slammed the Mariners the first 2 games of that series. Seattle came back, was down 2-0 late, tied it, went to extras. Kyle Seager hit a 3-run homer in extras to give the Mariners, well, they got another early run that he hit a 3-run homer to go up by 4. Astros kind of snuck back, but then the Mariners were able to get out of it and win. And Seattle played well there, but then they really stubbed their toe this past weekend. They dropped 3 of 4 to Kansas City. They did win Sunday's game 4-3, but they blew a 4-0 lead in Thursday's game, lost 6-4. They blew a 5-1 lead on Friday night, lost 8-7, lost 4-2 on Saturday. So kind of erased what they did winning that finale at Houston and winning 2 at Oakland. You know, that really was a kick in the gut for the Mariners. Houston ended up coming back to beat Texas in the opener of their series 5-4, then won 5-2 on Saturday, but Zach Greinke was lit up on Sunday, and the Astros won easily, or the Rangers won easily over the Astros 13-2. So Houston now goes to Seattle, where they have had success. The Astros, they stumbled early in the year at Seattle, but that was also because they had a bunch of guys out, COVID-related stuff. But a couple notes here. The Astros and Mariners have hit the over in 6 straight meetings. Secondly, Houston has taken 4 of the past 5 and 7 of the past 10 against Seattle. On the mound for the Astros tonight, it's Luis Garcia. And Garcia pitched well his last time out against Kansas City. 6 2/3, scoreless, 7 strikeouts, 4-0 victory. Astros 4-0 his last 4 starts. So he has pitched well. Wasn't great against Seattle back on July 26th. Laying 160, he gave up 6 earned runs in 4 2/3 innings, but had 9 strikeouts. So for Garcia, he's been good, but he wasn't so good against Seattle. Now, Chris Flexen, he is up tonight for the Mariners. And for Flexen, 3.54 ERA, most profitable pitcher in baseball this season, most profitable starter in baseball. He cashed as an underdog against Seattle's last time out, or against Oakland's last time out, in which he won 5-1, and he allowed just an earned run. And look, the guy has he's been pretty strong this year, but lost to Houston last time he faced him 8-6 back in late July, 7 earned runs in 4 innings of work. So the Astros favored their lane 150 against the Mariners, and the final game of the night. Not much playoff implication here, but the Rockies face the Rangers in Arlington. German Marquez, who was not good his last time out against the Cubs. That was that wild game at Wrigley. Rockies won in extras 13-10. Marquez was rocked 5 earned runs in 3 innings. Cubs took an early lead. Rockies came back, tied it. Cubs tied it in the 7th, not the 9th. This was a doubleheader. And then the the Rockies pulled away in extras, got Marquez off the hook. Marquez, in 2 of his last 3 starts, he's given up 5 earned runs or more. So that's not good. But he's still turning around since a slow start. But his ERA 5.16 on the road. And A.J. Alexy goes for the Rangers tonight and Texas off that big victory over the Astros on Sunday. And look, Colorado took 2 of 3 from LA, but they're still 17-48 on the road. So I don't really know how much you trust this Rockies team moving forward. So that's the look at everything going on in Major League Baseball for tonight, and also the review of college football. Tomorrow, looks like we are going to speak with our old friend Bruce Marshall, and he will join us on the show on the Daily Insider. We'll talk college football with Bruce, and then we will also have some other stuff with him with the NFL starting in a week. The NFL basically off for a week. So that's it. That's today's edition of the Daily Insider. If you missed any of it, you could find it on VegasInsider.com as well as our YouTube channel at Vegas Insider. I am Kevin Rogers. Thank you so much for watching today's edition of the Daily Insider, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow at noon right here on Vegas Insider.